I would love to get into your encounters with Jesus. I know after your first near-death experience, and for anybody who wants to hear all the details, listen, Matt Klein had done a wonderful job interviewing you. You can learn all about all those details in that interview, which there are links in the description to this about the. But after your first near-death experience where you drowned in a pool, what were some of the abilities that kind of awakened within you? Like what started happening in your life?
I started to be able to see spirits, and I could see they were solid. And I call them people without bodies because they're still people. They are who they were before. And just, I learned that just because their body died, they did not. They continued being who they were. And so I was able to also tell when someone was going to die before they died. That kind of, I don't like that part of it, so I don't do that part. But back
Mm.
then, it was all so new. I would get a smell like in my room, like just before my uncle died, and I knew that he was going to die. And then the next day, I came home from school, and it was because of that odor that was in my room. It smelled like real strong carnations, and I don't know why, but sweet cooked carrots. And I guess that's what nursing homes smell like. Funeral homes smell like to me. But and
Mm.
anyway, I knew before my uncle was going to die that he was. And the next day, my dad came home from work, and I had was asking him, "Why are you packing? Where are you going?" And he said, "Well, your Uncle Edwin has passed away." I was like, "I know." But I didn't think he was going to have to leave that soon.
Mhm.
So it was seeing spirits, and um, there were other things too, but um, I was just in the learning phase at that time. I was just a little girl, so I didn't quite know. I would see angels and that kind of thing, and you know, but when I talked about it, just that and some other things that were happening, when I talked about that stuff to an adult, a couple this was about the time I was 15, so it was a couple years after my drowning. I was told that it wasn't happening, that it was all in my head. And so I started questioning my own sanity. I thought, oh God, I'm crazy. And I didn't, I had planned to commit suicide, but I never told anybody. And it's usually when the person is very quiet about committing suicide that you need to worry. When they start talking about, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that's usually for attention's sake. It's not, you know,
The situation was that you were hearing, you were seeing angels and such, and knowing when people were about to die. And then you told some adults about this, and at the age of 15, they said they made you think that you were going crazy, and you're like questioning your own sanity. And then,
right.
like,
There
what?
were other things that were happening too that shouldn't happen to anybody. So it was a combination of me talking about this other particular circumstance in my life, and seeing the spirits and seeing angels, and all of that kind of thing. Um, so they did tell me, no, none of this is happening. It's all in your head. When I knew it was happening, I wasn't crazy, but it made me feel like I was, and until I was going to commit suicide, and I didn't tell anybody.
Hmm.
And at that particular time, I was singing in the youth choir at our church, and it was a Good Friday, and we went to a neighboring church to sing. And that's when I saw Jesus for the first time, and physical, sit down, touch me on the shoulder type,
Hmm.
Um, and
Wow.
he was so beautiful. And he's not the blonde haired, blue eyed Jesus that's depicted in churches. That's not what he looked like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's amazing. And I loved your description of when you said you looked deep into his eyes
Yeah.
and then you saw his soul. What was that experience like? What did you see there?
Well, he, he appeared to me, and he had the dark olive complexion and the deep brown eyes and a close cut beard and very long, very dark, wavy hair. Not kinky curly, not whatever. Everybody wants to argue about this. And I keep telling them, no, this is what I saw. Anyway, when I looked, he sat down next to me and said some things that were very particular just for me, that just blew me out of the water, because I had never said a word to anybody about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was important. And as he was talking to me about that, I looked into his eyes very deep. And although his eyes were brown, I could see this beautiful shade of blue that looked like a cloudless sky. Um, so even though his eyes were brown, I was looking deeper than the physical appearance. I could see his soul, and it was so pure and spotless and clean, like a cloudless blue sky. Uh, it was amazing. It was so beautiful that he would let me look that deep into his eyes.
Yeah. And I remember you describing uh, just his nature, even just being in his presence, like this sense of holiness,
Yeah.
and this awe of the holiness. And for me, I mean, I know that word just doesn't even describe like what people don't understand what this means unless you've experienced it, you know. Um, but for me, holiness and perfect love just go hand in hand. It's just like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. When he first walked into the room, I got this sense, oh my gosh, there's this holiness is in this room right now, and it was kind of a shock. And then as he got closer to me, and it was like, oh my gosh, I know that. And he sits down right next to me. Well, my mouth gets so dry. And I'm, a 15-year-old girl. So I'm sitting there with my eyes as big as saucers, my mouth hanging to the ground. And I couldn't speak because my tongue felt like it was like 3 sizes bigger than my mouth. And and all he did was sit down next to me and smiled. And he had dimples when he smiled. And it was just like, oh, it was so magnificently beautiful. But it, the love that I mean, it was like he had a big old sunshine on his chest or something, a big love just pouring out of him. It was amazing. And when he sat down next to me, he says, where do I go to sit? Well, I'm just like, I couldn't say anything at all. So the two ladies in front of him turned around and answered his question. But then when he was talking to them, he was also talking to me. And that's when I looked into his eyes and I could see the blue.
Mm.
And he said, what is happening to you in your life is happening. You are not crazy. I love you. I'm with you. Don't be afraid. And I thought, now, how did he know to say those words? Because those were perfect words, and I had never told anybody about, what I was thinking and feeling in my heart, of what I was
Mm.
going to do and how I felt like I was crazy and everything. So it, it, and also there were two women that were sitting in front of the two women that turned around to talk to him. So there was four of us all total that saw him. Nobody else in the choir did. It was just us four ladies. And I know in my heart of hearts that he allowed that to happen so there would be confirmation, so that I would not further question my sanity. Did I, in fact, see, was he really sitting next to me? Was he who I thought he was? Because they were there for validation. And, and he actually, when he got up to go upstairs to where we were going to go sing, he put his finger on the elbow of the lady in front who had turned around and told him where to go. And she had arthritis in her elbow so bad she couldn't bend her arm, and he healed her elbow just by putting a finger on it.
Hmm.
So there were so many things that happened in just that one little visit that proved who he was. Not that we needed any proof, but he was able to validate or confirm, or if that makes any sense, of
Yeah.
how perfect he was, and how perfect. And he didn't wear a gown. He didn't, he dressed just like us. He was so humble and so gentle of spirit, and so loving, so beautiful, beyond beautiful.
Yeah.
He just wore a regular button-down shirt, blue jeans, and boots. So he didn't dress to stand out in the crowd. He wasn't. I want to say he wasn't like in his total glory, if you know what I mean, all lit up with lights and whatever. And just, I mean,
Hmm.
he appeared, and he was just like the rest of us, but yet not. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting in the scriptures how Jesus, he said in the sheep and the goats parable, he says, whatever you haven't, whatever you did to the least of these, you did for me. You know, and I once had a conversation with someone who was asking to see Jesus. I want to see you, Jesus. I want to see you. And he went on a mission trip, and he stumbled into this village, and and uh, and he sees this man with like crooked teeth and with like these sores, open sores on his face, and just like somebody you're like, oh man, here's one example of the least of these in our minds, right?
Right.
And then this man like says, now you see me as I am, you know, like
Hmm.
like Jesus in disguise, right there in the sky. And in a certain aspect, we're all, I had this thought even this morning, we're all part of the body of Christ, but
Exactly.
most of us just don't know it. We're just blind to the fact that he has included us, that we're expressions and extensions of him, that we're made of his own substance. And as I like to say, fractals of the soul of God, fractals of the soul of Christ. And these were some of the lessons that God went over with you in your near death experience when you went to heaven after being struck by lightning. You know, I want to touch on some of that, especially because I'm curious about, first of all, when you got struck by lightning, here you're in your same house, but you go into the house or whatever, and it's completely different, and it's back in time. Like
Right.
here you have
Yeah.
this time travel trip into your own house before you lived in it, back in the 1930s,
I
40s,
think yeah,
50s.
30s or 40s. I mean, whatever. That's how. I really don't know. I was like 30s or 40s is what I would say.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's interesting to me because I've been learning about how time is not as linear as we thought.
Right.
It's basically, it's kind of all happening at once, but it's kind of teased out in a linear way for us, and for the
Hmm.
experience to happen the way it should. It's just very interesting to me about how we're all linked together too. What happens to the one happens to the all.
Yeah.
If one of you suffers, then we all suffer.
Right.
And if one of you succeeds and overcomes, we're all succeeding and overcoming in a sense. And we celebrate, we rejoice with those who rejoice, we mourn with those who mourn.
Right. It's like a ripple effect,
Yeah.
as how I look at it. The decisions and things that I think now, and the decisions that I make right now, will also affect my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and down the line, and down the line, and down the line. Happiness, the things that we do that make us happy, make those that love us around us happy. And then when they're happy, other people that they're connected to are happy, and on down, and on down, and on down. So
Oh yeah.
it happens for the good or for the bad, either way.
Yeah. The ripple effects of our lives. And, like, for instance, uh, yeah, for the good and for the, like, you're throwing a pebble into a pool, which represents the world, and these ripples go out. And pretty
Right.
soon you're touching everybody with your
Exactly.
life. And how much darker a place this would be if you didn't exist, because you're here to love. I, I would I really want to focus right now just on these
Hmm.
encounters with Jesus, because I'm actually writing a book about that specifically,
Oh,
and drawing in other people's stories too, um, for that. And
wonderful.
yeah, and I was particularly fascinated by the time when Jesus arrived in your kitchen
Oh,
when you're watching your mother, looking over her. So, and what he said, that was amazing. Why don't you share
well,
that?
he, I, I was my mom's caregiver for over 6 years. She had Alzheimer's. And there were days when that would be particularly difficult. You know, it was very stressful, and sometimes it was very very hard to watch her suffering and disappearing in front of my eyes, and there wasn't a thing I could do.
Hmm.
And so it was one of those days, and I had put her down for a nap, and my way of decompressing was to clean. So I went into the kitchen and I started mopping the kitchen floor. And I heard this noise behind me, and I turned around, and it was Jesus. And he was just as solid as you are. And he was leaning against the counter, and he had his arms crossed over his chest and his feet crossed at the ankles. And I was just like, oh my gosh, don't move, don't say anything, don't disappear. I went and got a piece of paper and I wrote down what he said.
Oh, that's
Um,
lovely.
and he was just so casual, you know, and so relaxed. And he looked exactly the same as he had the first time I saw him. So his physical appearance didn't change at all. He was wearing different clothes, and he was barefoot, which I thought was um, really cool because I always walk around barefoot.
Hmm.
So, um, what he said to me, he said, "You cry because you think I cast you away from me in heaven, and that's so far from the truth." And he was right. I had been crying about that, thinking, "Really, you're going to kick me out again? You know what's wrong? What's wrong with me? You know?" But so, and I never said anything to anyone. So here again, he is saying to me the exact words I need to hear, as if he was reading my mind, but he reads hearts, so he knew what was in my heart. And he said, "So that's the farthest thing from the truth." Um, he said, "Everything that's happened to you in your life has happened to you to prepare you for this job I have for you." And I was like, "Well, what's the job?" And he said, um, "Just to love. That's all. And when you get burdened or overly burdened and weary and sad and sick and tired and frustrated, you give all of that to me because I'm big, I'm strong, I can handle it. You don't have to carry that yourself. You just give that over to me, and all you do is love because that's what you do the best. So that's what you do." And it made me hopeful because we don't have to carry it all. Just
Hmm.
lay it at the foot of his cross, just write it down on a piece of paper, send it up in a pile of smoke, and give it to him, and go on and just do everything that you do in your life, do it with love. And that's what we're supposed to do. And that's apparently what he told me I was supposed to do. So it made it a lot easier. He always seemed to come to me at pivotal moments when I was just like at my wits' end, and that's it, I'm done, kind of attitude. And then he would show up with some amazing, and I don't usually tell people when I'm that low. I just don't talk about it. And so that's when he would show up, and he would tell me exactly what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
He would reiterate to me, because I had been thinking, you kicked me out again. So what is it about me you don't like? What is the deal? And so he almost said it. He did have a grin on his face. He was smiling, not in a, he kind of way, but, he had a beautiful smile. And he would, do you think I cast you away? And I didn't. That's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's that story.
When I met Jesus in my vision, May 21st, he had a big smile on his face too. And it's just like, when I saw him, I was like, I want to live out of you. I want to live out of you. I want to live out. I've been living in fear for so long that had kept me from experiencing the kingdom and having this flow with him,
Right.
experiencing just what that kingdom life is all about. Yeah, I had some fears, and I invited Jesus into those fears, and so that's what provoked this experience. When I see him face to face, yeah, he has a smile on his face, happy to see me. He's always happy to see us, and
Yeah, he
like I
is.
love how in your life review and when in your near death experience, one of them, that you realize there's no judgment.
Right.
The only judgment we have is when we judge ourselves, and when we sentence ourselves to some sort of punishing experience. I mean, not even the consequences of our sin are punishment from God. It's just
Right.
what's gonna natural result of those poor choices.
Exactly. Exactly.
And sin brings with it its own punishment or whatever.
Its own
It's not from,
consequence.
yeah, it's consequence. It's not from God though, not from God.
No.
um,
No,
that
it's
he doesn't hold our sins against us. You know,
right.
that's just beautiful, and he's always treated me with mercy, with grace that's surprising,
Yeah.
and so affirming. Hi, my name's Daniel.
And I'm Catherine, and together we are Reflect.
And we are making the world a better place, one song at a time.
We write songs, create music videos, lead worship, and put on concerts. Thank you for taking a few minutes to connect with us here on Patreon. Patreon is a way for you to support artists that you love on a monthly basis, to do what artists do, create art.
We believe that our Creator is a good Father and that Jesus loves you more than you think he does. And that's the message we convey in every concert we do. Catherine and I married in 2001, and since that time, we have created 5 albums and 3 adorable children.
Hello, everybody. This is our family.
Ellie, Emma,
and Elijah. Our band name Reflect came from a verse that God highlighted for us in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. It says that we might be mirrors that brightly reflect the glory of the Lord, and as the Spirit of the Lord works within us, we'll reflect His glory even more. We spend most weekends traveling around, leading worship, putting on concerts, and playing at music festivals.
During the week, I put on concerts in nursing homes, and I host Sozo Talk Radio podcast.
So this is us. We're looking to connect with those who want to join us in our work of writing and recording new songs, making amazing music videos, and releasing new podcasts.
So will you join us in bringing some spiritually enriching content into this world? We plan on writing and releasing a new song a week. That's a lofty goal, and also to create more music videos.
You can support us by liking, subscribing, sharing, and purchasing our content, and joining us here on Patreon. As our patron, you'll have access to free music downloads and other exclusive content.
We cannot thank you enough for joining us in this exciting journey. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
thanks for joining us on Patreon.
Thank you.
May your kingdom